Welcome to Warriors of the World. Today we'll be exploring Roman gladiators, those legendary fighters who battled, bled, and died in the arenas of the Roman Empire. Subscribe now to join our community and support this project. Now, let's begin. Picture Rome's Colosseum, 50,000 spectators roaring as two men circle each other in the sand. One will likely die for their entertainment. But gladiatorial combat wasn't a Roman invention. It began as something darker, human sacrifice. The first gladiator fights occurred in Etruria around the 6th century BC. When Etruscan elites died, warriors were forced to duel to death at their funeral ceremonies. Their blood was considered an offering to appease the dead. Romans, masters at borrowing and transforming other cultures' practices, took this macabre ritual and turned it into history's greatest spectacle. The earliest Roman gladiator fight occurred in 264 BC when three pairs of slaves fought to honor the deceased father of Junius Brutus Pera. What started as a solemn funeral tribute evolved into a political tool as ambitious Romans began sponsoring larger games to curry public favor. By Julius Caesar's time, the transformation was complete. To commemorate his daughter's death, Caesar presented 320 pairs of gladiators in silver armor, a spectacle more about his political ambition than honoring the dead. The religious origins remained only as hollow rituals, while the entertainment value skyrocketed. As historian Mary Beard notes, what had once been private ceremonies for the elite became mass entertainment for everyone from senators to slaves. This evolution mirrors America's own professional sports, from informal community gatherings to billion-dollar industries. Just as our modern NFL began as simple collegiate competitions, gladiator games grew from modest funeral rites to the ancient equivalent of the Super Bowl. To understand gladiatorial combat, forget the Hollywood portrayal of random slaves tossed into the arena. The reality was a sophisticated, highly profitable industry that would rival any modern sports enterprise. If gladiator games existed today, they'd be a multi-billion-dollar business. Emperor Marcus Aurelius set price caps for gladiators, 60,000 denarii for a top fighter. For perspective, a legionary soldier earned about 1,200 denarii annually. Top gladiators were the ancient equivalent of today's $30 million per year NFL superstars. The Colosseum, completed in 80 AD, featured 36 trapdoors, elevator systems, and a retractable canvas roof operated by sailors. Its crowd management system, with numbered entrances corresponding to seating sections, is virtually identical to modern stadiums. This 50,000-seat venue would cost approximately $1 billion today. Training schools called ludi were comparable to modern NFL facilities. The Ludus Magnus, connected to the Colosseum by underground tunnel, was an elite sports academy with medical staff, specialized trainers, and weapon masters. X-ray studies of Gladiator remains revealed planned diets high in carbohydrates and calcium supplements, ancient sports nutrition designed to build protective fat and strengthen bones. Games were funded by politicians seeking popularity, similar to corporations putting their names on stadiums today. Trajan's 123-day games involved 11,000 animals and 10,000 gladiators at a cost equivalent to hundreds of millions of dollars. Archaeological excavations have uncovered gladiator-themed merchandise in homes, the ancient equivalent of team jerseys and bobbleheads. As one archaeological curator told me, Romans were the first society to fully commercialize sports heroism. Their marketing machine would put modern sports leagues to shame. Who were these men who fought and died for Roman entertainment? The gladiatorial ranks were surprisingly diverse, a cross-section of the ancient world forced or enticed into combat. The most common source was prisoners of war. When Rome conquered new territories, the strongest captives were often sent to gladiator schools. Thracians from modern Bulgaria, Gauls from France, Germanic tribesmen, Numidians from North Africa, the arena showcased warriors from across the known world. Criminals condemned to death by sword, ad gladium, formed another significant group. Unlike modern death row, these men could potentially survive if they proved skilled enough. Hardened criminals might receive the harsher sentence of damnatio ad bestias, execution by wild animals with no chance of survival. Most surprising to modern Americans is the third category: volunteers who willingly signed contracts to become gladiators. These free men, including some from upper classes who had fallen on hard times, were the ancient equivalent of today's extreme sports athletes, trading safety for potential fame and fortune. Emperor Commodus himself fought as a gladiator, though competitors knew better than to win against him. A contract discovered in Ephesus reads, I undertake to be burnt by fire, to be bound in chains, to be beaten, to die by the sword." In exchange, these volunteers received professional training, housing, medical care, and the chance for glory. Archaeological evidence from gladiator graveyards shows many survived into their 30s and 40s, surprising longevity for their profession. Isotope analysis reveals fighters came from across the Roman world. Some tombstones even list win-loss records, with one veteran claiming 34 victories over a long career. As one Pompeii graffiti proclaimed about the gladiator Celadus, the girl's heartthrob. These were the ancient world's rock stars, famous, desired, and living perpetually on the edge of death. Long before UFC created specialized fighter classes, Romans had developed a sophisticated system of gladiator types, each with distinctive weapons, armor, and fighting styles designed to create dramatic matchups. The Murmillo was the heavyweight powerhouse, heavily armored with a large rectangular shield, gladius short sword, and distinctive fish-crested helmet. His fighting style emphasized strength over speed, like a football lineman, massive, protected, and devastating at close range. His natural opponent was the Thraex, Thracian, armed with a small rectangular shield and curved Sicca sword. With less body armor but more mobility, the Thraex relied on speed and precision, similar to how MMA fighters with striking backgrounds approach wrestling specialists. Most iconic was the Retiarius, the net fighter. Nearly naked except for a shoulder guard, he wielded a trident and net against fully armored opponents. This extreme mismatch created dramatic contests where speed and cunning faced off against raw power. The Retiarius would be the showman of ancient combat sports, fighting with unorthodox weapons and relying on spectacular moves to win the crowd. Other specialized types included the Dimachurus, dual-wielding swords, the Equites, who began fights on horseback, and the Andibati, who fought blindfolded. Each type wore distinct equipment so spectators could quickly identify fighters and their specialties. These matchups weren't random but carefully planned to create compelling style contrasts. A Retiarius against his specialized opponent, the Secutor, was the ancient version of a striker versus grappler UFC bout. Excavated training schedules show that gladiators rarely cross-trained in multiple fighting styles. Instead, they specialized in one discipline their entire career. The ancient physician Galen, who served as doctor to gladiators, noted, "I can identify a fighter's style merely by examining his muscular development." Behind the glory of the arena lay the brutal reality of daily life as a gladiator. The training facilities, ludi, combined elements of prison, military camp, and elite athletic center in a unique environment designed to transform men into entertainment killing machines. A typical day began before dawn with conditioning exercises that would challenge even modern athletes. Gladiators trained with wooden weapons twice as heavy as real ones to build strength, a technique still used by baseball players who warm up with weighted bats. Morning sessions focused on technique with trainers correcting every movement. Excavations at the Ludus in Pompeii reveal harsh living conditions. Gladiators were housed in small cells measuring roughly 10 by 10 feet, with iron restraints found in many rooms. The facility was designed with security in mind: high walls, limited entrances, and guard quarters positioned for constant surveillance. Diet was scientifically managed. Roman writers referred to gladiators as hordearii, barley men, because of their high carbohydrate diet. Modern analysis of gladiator remains shows bone density far above average and high strontium levels, indicating a vegetarian diet supplemented with a calcium drink made from dissolved bone ash, an ancient protein shake. This diet created a protective layer of fat that would allow for impressive-looking surface wounds while protecting vital organs. The Ludus maintained physicians specifically trained in treating combat wounds. Excavated medical instruments from gladiator barracks include bone saws, arterial clamps, and specialized scalpels. Galen, who began his career treating gladiators, pioneered surgical techniques that wouldn't be rediscovered for centuries. Despite harsh conditions, archaeological evidence shows gladiators formed tight-knit fraternities. They created burial clubs to ensure proper funerals for fallen comrades, shared distinctive tattoos marking their Ludus affiliation, and developed their own slang and technical jargon. Contrary to popular belief, gladiatorial combat wasn't simply lawless slaughter but a highly regulated sport with referees, rules, and specific victory conditions. Bouts began with a testing phase called prelucio, fighters using wooden weapons to warm up and study their opponent's style. This ancient feeling-out process served the same purpose as the early rounds in modern boxing matches. Once the editor, sponsor, signaled the real fight to begin, gladiators switched to steel weapons. Referees called summa rudis monitored the action, intervening to enforce rules with a wooden staff. Like modern MMA referees, they could pause the action, separate clinches, and enforce penalties for illegal moves. Inscriptions detail prohibited tactics, including striking down opponents or attacking after a fighter had submitted. Matches weren't the brief skirmishes depicted in movies, but often tactical contests lasting up to 15 to 20 minutes. The crowd's involvement was crucial. Spectators shouted advice and criticism, influencing both the fighters and officials. When a gladiator was wounded or exhausted, he could raise his index finger requesting mercy. The editor would then consult the crowd. The famous thumbs gesture determined the fallen fighter's fate, though contrary to Hollywood depictions, historians now believe thumbs down actually signaled mercy while thumbs up meant death. Archaeological evidence suggests approximately 1 in 5 fights ended in death. As gladiator historian Roger Dunkel explains, these men represented significant investments for their owners. Killing them routinely would be like demolishing NASCAR vehicles after every race, economically unsustainable. Victory didn't require killing. A fighter could win by forcing his opponent to submit or by clearly dominating the match. Champions received prizes including palm branches, gold coins, and wooden swords symbolizing freedom after enough victories. In 73 BC, a Thracian gladiator named Spartacus led what would become the most famous slave uprising in ancient history, a rebellion that nearly brought the Roman Republic to its knees. The uprising began in the gladiator school of Capua when Spartacus and approximately 70 fellow gladiators escaped using kitchen knives. Initially dismissed as a minor slave revolt, this complacency proved catastrophic. Within weeks, the escaped gladiators had established a camp on Mount Vesuvius and defeated the first military forces sent against them. What made Spartacus exceptional wasn't just his fighting skills but his strategic mind. Before becoming a gladiator, he had reportedly served as an auxiliary in the Roman army, military experience that proved decisive. Rather than engaging Roman forces head-on, he employed guerrilla tactics, using the countryside to his advantage. Each victory brought more slaves to his cause. What began with dozens of gladiators swelled to an army estimated between 70,000 to 120,000 escaped slaves. They defeated 2 consular armies and numerous militia forces, capturing military equipment and training new recruits in Roman tactics. According to Plutarch, Spartacus initially attempted to lead his army north toward Gaul, where they could disperse beyond Roman control. When they reached the Alps, however, his fighters, now confident after multiple victories, refused to leave Italy and its riches. This fateful decision to turn back south doomed the rebellion. Rome finally sent Marcus Licinius Crassus with 8 full legions. After several hard-fought battles, the disciplined Roman military prevailed. Spartacus died in battle in 71 BC. In a final act of brutality, Crassus crucified 6,000 captured slaves along the Appian Way. The rebellion fundamentally changed gladiatorial training. Schools implemented extreme security measures, limited weapon access, and restricted the number of fighters trained at each facility. Spartacus remains the most enduring symbol of resistance against oppression from the ancient world. His name has been invoked by revolutionaries from the slave rebellions of Haiti to the German socialist uprising in 1919. One of history's best-kept secrets is that women also fought as gladiators in ancient Rome. Though fewer in number than their male counterparts, these female fighters, called gladiatrices, repeatedly astonished Roman audiences with their skill and ferocity. The evidence is unequivocal. The marble relief from Halicarnassus, now in the British Museum, clearly depicts 2 female gladiators named Amazon and Achillea, with exposed breasts to emphasize their gender. Ancient writers including Tacitus, Suetonius, and Cassius Dio mention women fighting in the arena. Archaeologists have uncovered references to female fighters in inscriptions from Ostia and Pompeii. Unlike male gladiators who were mostly slaves or criminals, female gladiators often came from higher social classes, some even from elite families seeking forbidden thrills. Emperor Domitian staged nighttime games featuring aristocratic women, creating such scandal that later emperors prohibited women of rank from arena appearances. Women generally fought with lighter equipment but following the same gladiatorial styles and rules as men. They were rare enough to be promoted as special attractions, the ancient equivalent of novelty matches on modern fight cards. Their reception was complex. Roman society officially disapproved of women in such masculine, public roles, yet accounts describe crowds thrilled by their performances. Their matches were often scheduled during the midday break, a prime slot reserved for unusual or exotic exhibitions. Emperor Septimius Severus banned female gladiatorial combat around 200 AD, though evidence suggests it continued in provinces far from Rome's direct control. The most extraordinary case occurred during the inaugural games of Emperor Titus when noble ladies voluntarily fought as gladiators, causing such scandal that subsequent legislation prohibited high-born women from arena combat. This hidden history challenges our assumptions about gender roles in antiquity. As archaeologist Anna McCullough observed, female gladiators remind us that women have always pushed boundaries, even in societies that officially denied them agency. While gladiatorial combat formed the main event in Roman games, equally popular were the elaborate hunting spectacles called venations, staged wild animal hunts that combined extreme danger, exotic spectacle, and ecological devastation. These weren't simple exhibitions but complex productions featuring specialized animal fighters, venators, hunting dangerous predators in elaborately constructed artificial environments. The Colosseum could be transformed into different landscapes using scenery, trapdoors, and mechanical devices. The scale is almost incomprehensible. For Trajan's 123-day games in 107 AD, 11,000 animals were killed. A single event under Emperor Augustus featured 420 leopards, 260 lions, 36 crocodiles, and hundreds of other exotic species. Emperor Commodus personally killed 100 bears in a single day. This obsession with exotic animals created the ancient world's first global wildlife trafficking network. Roman agents scoured North Africa, the Middle East, and even India for novel species. Recent analysis suggests animal collection for games contributed to the extinction of North African elephants, Barbary lions, and several other species. The venators were specialized fighters with their own training facilities and techniques. Archaeological evidence shows they used distinctive equipment including padded armor, throwing spears, and specialized shields shaped to deflect animal attacks. These spectacles weren't merely entertainment but political messaging. By displaying animals from the farthest reaches of empire, emperors demonstrated their dominion over the natural world itself. Smaller-scale versions of these hunting displays spread throughout the empire. Archaeological evidence shows amphitheaters from Britannia to North Africa housed animal pens and staging areas for venations. This ancient Roman preoccupation with dominating and destroying natural wonders represents not just entertainment but a worldview where conquering nature itself was central to Roman identity. After dominating Roman entertainment for nearly 7 centuries, gladiatorial combat gradually disappeared, not through a single dramatic ban, but through a combination of economic pressures, cultural shifts, and religious changes. Contrary to popular belief, Christianity wasn't the sole cause of the game's demise. While Christian writers condemned arena violence, economic factors played an equally important role. By the 4th century AD, the imperial economy was struggling. As Rome's economy faltered, fewer sponsors could afford the astronomical costs of the games. Emperor Constantine banned gladiatorial combat in the Eastern Empire in 325 AD after his conversion to Christianity. However, the games continued in Rome and throughout the western provinces. Emperor Honorius officially ended gladiatorial combat in 399 AD following the dramatic protest of a Christian monk named Telemachus, who leapt into the arena to separate fighters and was stoned to death by the outraged crowd. Despite these imperial bans, archaeological evidence suggests modified versions of the games continued sporadically in some regions into the 5th century. The Colosseum itself was finally closed for gladiatorial purposes by 438 AD, though beast hunts continued for another century. As real gladiators faded, they achieved immortality in Roman art and culture. Mosaics, frescoes, and sculptures preserving their images have survived millennia. The excavations at Pompeii revealed graffiti immortalizing their names and exploits. Their legacy persists in modern culture in surprising ways. Contemporary combat sports follow formats remarkably similar to Roman precedents. Their image as warriors facing death with courage, trained to perfection and destined for glory or oblivion, continues resonating with modern audiences. Phrases like entering the arena, thumbs down, or main event derive directly from gladiatorial terminology. As sports historian Alan Gutman observed, the gladiator represents something primal in human entertainment that we've never fully abandoned, the controlled spectacle of violence that allows spectators to experience danger vicariously while maintaining a veneer of civilization. In this sense, gladiators never truly disappeared. They simply evolved, from slaves fighting to the death into modern athletes competing for championship belts. The fundamental desire to witness human physical competition pushed to its limits remains as powerful today as it was when Romans filled the Colosseum 2,000 years ago. Subscribe now, become a member, turn on notifications, share this video with your friends, and leave a comment so we can compare our knowledge and sources. Thanks for watching, Warriors of the World. Until the next combat,